This is like one of my favorite lines in all of this. One path of clear light travels on throughout endless time. The 10 Oxherding pictures are a ancient group of wood blocks that depict the journeyless journey of enlightenment. And it's this little oxherder and the ox. And they progress 1 through 10. And we're going to talk about those. I'll read them to you, and then I'll kind of unpack at least my interpretation of them in this moment. This is something I don't commonly do, but I'll invite questions. If you have questions as I go along, really just for clarification. I don't want to talk about your practice and tell me a story about your life and stuff. I just mean, like, if something I'm saying is not clear, or you want more clarity or more me to unpack something a little more, it's fine to let me know. Okay. So the first Oxherding picture is called The Search for the Bull. In the pasture of this world, I endlessly push aside the tall grasses and search for the bull, or the ox. It can be either one. Following unnamed rivers, lost upon interpenetrating paths of distant mountains, my strength failing and my vitality exhausted, I cannot find the bull. I only hear the locusts churring through the forest at night. So every one of them has like a stanza and then a comment on it. But the stanza to me really depicts, it is sort of the first stage of awakening in the way I talk about it. And the first stage I often describe is suffering. You could say suffering is just the state of human affairs. You could say it's the human condition. You could say it's Thoreau's life of quiet desperation. But I would say even realizing that is actually a step. It's an important stage. It's an important realization. And that is something that I think actually kind of recently realized. The reason I didn't know that is because for me, growing up, it was always like that. I was always kind of suffering. I was always feeling that discontent. I was always feeling that something wasn't right with, mostly with people, and then how people were talking about themselves, how they were talking about life, and then how they were teaching me to be a one of them. It all felt off to me somehow. I think as I grew into adolescence, it became much more about me, or it felt like it was about me, or at least the problem was here. And I was like trying to solve the problem of me. Who am I? What the fuck is wrong with me? Those kinds of things. You could probably call that anxiety. It felt like anxiety. It was probably like super anxiety in some sense. And I don't know. I don't know what people experience when they say anxiety. I think a lot of people probably do have this kind of existential angst. They probably are actually seeing the world more accurately than people who don't have that. But I don't know. And depression, probably similar, actually. You sense that something's really wrong, but you don't know how to address it. Maybe you deeply sense that the way people are talking about addressing it isn't working for them. There's layers of inauthenticity. Many people who look like they aren't suffering, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Maybe they are suffering and they're avoiding it, or they don't know it. But if you're sensitive, sometimes you feel, even in those people that seem like they have it together, you feel something really uncomfortable around them. Maybe this was my experience growing up. So to me, that's the first stage. And as I said, I didn't realize that was a stage until pretty recently, just interacting with people. And I've had some very interesting conversations with people. I'll just use one to illuminate it. Is a friend who's very smart guy, very good guy, very family oriented, successful in business. He's just a good, all around good guy, really is in life. And I don't think he's faking it. I think he really is. But the funny thing is, he and a group of people invited me to speak at a conference a couple years ago, and I came and did what I do. And as I always do, I gave a disclaimer. I'm like, are you sure you know what I'm talking about? Because this can be challenging to some people. This can surprise people what I'm actually talking about, because it's pretty direct. And they're like, no, we love it. We read your book. We want you to come and all that. And so I came, and it was really good. Actually, it was a great time. And I was just one of several speakers and modalities they had at this sort of wellness weekend retreat. But the guy I'm talking about, who's now a friend of mine, really good guy, he didn't tell me this until a few months ago. And he said, when you came to that conference, you said something to the effect of, if you look closely enough, you'll see that you're suffering, or realizing that you are suffering really is kind of the first stage of things, and that we can totally avoid it, totally avoid even knowing that about ourselves. And again, this is a very smart guy, like a really sharp dude. And the reason I emphasize that is because it was so striking that he said this. He said, it's funny, when you said that, I thought, that's not true of me though. Maybe it's true of a lot of people, but I don't suffer. I feel good. I have a great family. I have a great job. I enjoy my work. I generally feel good, and I have good health, and I'm lucky, and all these things, And he said, I was totally convinced of it. I was like, I don't suffer. He said within a few months, a few things started happening, and it was kind of like he just could see through the cracks. They say the light shining through the crack. Well, this is more like sewage seeping through the cracks or something. When you start to realize you're suffering, you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? It's like, something don't smell right. Like what's going on in the basement, that kind of stuff. And he just sort of realized, like, yeah, actually I am suffering. And it really surprised him that he could be suffering and actually not know it. Like the mechanism of mind that helps you somehow not see that, not feel that, is really fascinating. It's actually more of a magic trick than awakening is. Awakening is not a magic trick. Awakening is seeing clearly. The magic trick is that we keep ourselves asleep, and it's fascinating how it happens. And it was a really good conversation, and really a good guy, like genuinely evolved human being in the relative world. But this part of things he just hadn't quite seen yet, hadn't started opening for him, and it did. And so now he's going through it, right? So really cool. So that is a stage for a lot of people. A lot of people really don't know that they suffer underneath. And this is a bit of an aside, but it puts me in a funny position to talk about this, right? Because who am I to say, no, you're suffering even though you don't think you are? I don't really say that because I don't know. I mean, maybe there are people who genuinely don't feel like they're suffering, and they genuinely aren't, and that's fine, I really don't know. But I just get this information from people who interact with me and tell it to me, and I do know that there's a lot of delusion running through human consciousness. I know that. I see it all the time. I see it in communication. I see it in the way thoughts function, all of it, right? That's obvious. So are there people out there who that doesn't cause suffering for? Maybe. But I think most people, if they really start to introspect, and often this is what actually happens, there's a disruption. Disruption is the kind of, it's Manjushri's entry point into your life sometimes, the bodhisattva of wisdom with the sword, it's like getting the rug pulled, which is often tragic. Like it's not something you would wish on anybody, to lose a loved one, to lose, a job, to have a health crisis, to lose a religion, realize that the religion you were in is just full of, nonsense or lies. And, it's anything that pulls the rug out from under you. And you get up and you're like disoriented, and like you really start asking the questions like, what the hell's going on? Why am I feeling so horrible? I thought everything was fine. Why do I feel horrible now? I'm the same person. What was it about what I was believing and thinking about life that was, and that's the thing. It's a hypnotic state of delusion, mind identification. And the first Oxherding picture is this. And here he is. He's exhausted. Can't find the bull. At this point, it's like, probably doesn't even know what the bull is yet. He just doesn't even know. I interpret this as he's looking for something. He doesn't know what. It's that sense of seeking, exhaustion, lost upon interpenetrating paths and distant mountains, right? Is that not the world of the mind identification? Like lost in these paths of the mind, and you just don't even know what's what. You don't have an orientation. You don't know there's a way out. You just know it's uncomfortable, and you're suffering, and you're struggling, and you're wasting your energy, and you feel it. The comment of this Oxherding picture is, the bull has never been lost, right? What need is there to go search? Only because of separation from my true nature, I fail to find him. This is more like his, the voice of the Dharma coming through, right? He's not totally conscious of this, but this is the Dharma coming through, and it's saying, it's kind of giving a little reorientation and saying, here's what's really happening, right? I fail to find him. The confusion of the senses, in the confusion of the senses, I lose even his tracks. Far from home, I see many crossroads, but which one is the right one, I know not. That sentence says so much about the questions I get from people that are intellectual. Oh, is it this or is it that? What do you mean by this? Tell me about what's going on with you. Like all these questions about me and my process, or what is enlightenment, or what is this equal that? What does this word mean? Like just trying to intellectualize and make a map of things. Like this is a big, I don't know if it's a barrier, but it's a big, I guess, milestone almost for people, where they have to go through that intellectual process and exhaust it and realize it will not work for you. It just won't work. You have to realize it won't work, right? Not everybody stumbles over this one, but some people, it's a big deal. And that sentence really encapsulates it. Far from home, I see many crossroads, but which way is the right way? I know not. And the sense of being, that's tied to being far from home, right? We don't realize that in that intellectual world, we actually feel far from home. We feel like unsettled. That's why we're trying to understand. We're trying to understand and put together a mental process or a mental map to make ourselves feel safe. But just doing that is keeping us far from home in a sense, the feeling of being far from home. So it's like the analogy I've used in my book. It's like when your head's on fire and you're pouring gasoline on it to try to put it out, right? That's that feeling. And you can tell why he's exhausted. Greed and fear, good and bad, entangle me. So that's the kind of entanglement with repressed emotions or afflictive emotions. Yeah. Okay. So 2, this is the second Oxherding picture, discovering the footprints. Along the riverbank, under the trees, I discover the footprints. Even under the fragrant grass, I see his prints. Deep in remote mountains, they are found. These traces no more can be hidden than one's nose looking heavenward. Why did you enter a monastery, right? What got you to do that kind of thing? Why do we do this? Why are we here, right? What brought you here? What compelled you to open the power of now? Or what compelled me to open the 3 pillars of Zen at the right time? I don't know, but those are the footprints, right? Those are the footprints of the ox, the bull, we could call it your true nature. In this stage of things, to him, it's something mystical. It's something beyond the confines of what you consider to be your life. It's the Dharma. It's the way, the Tao. There's something leading the way somewhere. You don't even know where, right? I'm going to totally misquote this. St. John of the Cross has a cool quote like, to go where you know not, you must take a path that you know not. Something like that. And it's like, that's exactly what it feels like. You don't know where you're going. You don't know why you're doing it. It makes no sense. You're off the map. And yet something in you is saying, yes, this is exactly where I'm going to go. Right? It's kind of crazy. And people might think you're crazy, people around you. And yet, it's what you need to do and where you need to go. This is, again, another stage. It's the stage of recognition. It's the stage of coming into contact with the Dharma, however that happens. Happens in all different ways. It does happen through tragedy. It does happen through disruption. Sometimes it happens through reading a book at the right time. Sometimes it happens with a deep meditative experience. Sometimes it happens after a psychedelic experience. Sometimes it happens with a foretaste, a taste of awakening, where it's like you feel rather awake. You feel sort of enlightened. And everything's just so different and so open and so clear and fluid. And then boom, it's gone. It's gone in one day. It's gone in 2 days. And it's like you're just left in this feeling of just desperation, worse than it was before, because you found the Garden of Eden and then you were kicked out of it. Yeah. And you didn't even have time to eat an apple. Next thing you know, it's gone, right? That's recognition. That's what, to me at least, that's what this second Oxherding picture represents. And it's the sweetest. For me, even at this whatever stage of things, it's like, in one sense, it's the sweetest part of the path. It's so magical. I love it when it happens to people. Yeah. Just incredible. And it's the Dharma vehicle is so flexible, so adaptable, and it's so mysterious. It's really cool. Everybody has a little bit of a different story about this too. It's really interesting to me how that happens. Could be turning on the right video at the right time. A lot of people say that. They randomly get served one of my videos on YouTube. One person told me even my book was randomly suggested to her on Amazon when she was looking for something totally different, like gardening or something. And she's like, wait, what's this? And she read the book and then it happened, right? So who knows how these things happen? It's pretty amazing. Okay. But you know you've come into contact with, again, something mystical. Maybe you could say spirit, something the spiritual has opened up a part of your life. The spiritual dimension now is opening, and you know it, you feel it, and it's like, whoa. Yeah. And sometimes we're scared of this, right? Sometimes it's like too much too fast, or it opens up so much that it's just mind-blowing or self-blowing, and it's like, whoa, it might take you 10 or 15, 20 years to integrate that. That's less common, but it does happen. But yeah, to come into contact with the mystical, you damn well know something happened there. You know. And you also know that it's often that it's sort of ineffable. Like, you know it's indescribable. It's not something you can put into words. You kind of get that sense because it's too close. It's too real to be put into words. Yeah. The comment on Oxherding picture number 2 of discovering the footprints is, understanding the teaching, I see the footprints of the bull. Then I learned that just as many utensils are made from one metal, so too are the myriad entities made of the fabric of self. Unless I discriminate. So at this point, that, again, like I just said, there's a sense of something mysterious, ineffable, and beyond the human dimension. And you sense that. You sense that everything is sort of part of the one. And you may learn it as a teaching, like that everything is part of the one, that there isn't separation in the way you that it looks like there is. And so you learn this, as he said. But then the question, the doubt is still strong, right? Unless I discriminate, how will I perceive true from untrue? So many questions I get are along these lines, right? What I'm experiencing, is it a thought or is it not? I don't know. Is this real or is it not real? This experience I have is so real, it's so obvious, and then the thought comes and says, no, you're just making that up. Is it true? Is that thought true or not true? Right? That duality of the binding of thought is sneaky, and that's exactly what he's describing here. How will I perceive the true from the untrue? Pulls you right back into the mind, yeah? And then he says, not yet having entered the gate, nevertheless, I have discerned the path. That's the Dharma speaking through him, right? Again, the voice is changing from his mind-identified self to the Dharma speaking through him. And he knows exactly where he is, because we all know exactly where we are, right? And people say this stuff to me. It's really interesting. They know. They know, like, it's coming sometimes. And then they know when it's like they're holding it off sometimes. And when they're right on the edge, too. It's really fun. And so he says, not yet having entered the gate, nevertheless, I have discerned the path. So he has that knowing that, yes, there is a path here. And yes, I have discerned it. And you can probably imagine he's all about taking that path now, looking for the next footstep. This was me listening to a college professor talk about Buddhism. And then all of a sudden he started, guest professor, you probably all heard this. And all of a sudden, instead of talking about Buddhism, he was talking directly to me and saying, here's how you can relieve yourself from your own suffering. That's what we're talking about here. It's not about some ancient teaching. Saying it right to me. It was just like, whoa! That was step 2 for me. Perceiving the bull. Beautiful. He's there and he's just looking over and he sees like the butt of the bull. Not the whole bull, but he sees the butt of it. He's like, I hear the song of the nightingale. The sun is warm and the wind is mild. Willows are green along the shore. So anyone who's had that shift, that awakening, maybe can feel that sentence. It's like everything just as it is. So simple. So ordinary, but extraordinary. Completely different and not different at all, right? It's a poetic way of saying it, but that's exactly what I pick up. All of a sudden, you actually hear the sound of the nightingale. He hears it. Never heard it before, probably, right? Like a friend of mine who was taking a shower, ran her hand through her hair, and all of a sudden realized she, in her 30s, had never felt her hand run through her hair fully. She'd never actually felt it. That was surprising. And it was also awakening. Yeah. The sun is warm. The wind is mild. Willows are green along the shore. Here, no bull can hide. That's when doubt collapses. It's a sort of certainty that comes with awakening. You know, and sometimes years after, if someone's had an awakening, some doubt may creep back in. They're like, I don't really know what happened, and they have a thin sense of identity, so it's hard to remember the awakening. But right after awakening, this is exactly how it is. People look and feel rather enlightened to me. To me, it's like, they're so open. They're so blown open. It's amazing, really. It's like a bodhisattva speaking as them right then, you know? And that's what he's saying. He's like, here, no bull can hide. That confidence, yeah? No artist, or what artist can draw that massive head, those majestic horns? It can't be fabricated. You realize finally something that can't be fabricated by the artist of your mind, by the artist of thought. Now you know the unfabricated, and everything is much clearer suddenly. All that delusion, all that suffering, you even understand it now. You understand the suffering. You see what the mechanism was. And you see that the mechanism is no big deal. It's a bunch of thoughts. Yeah? The comment. When one hears the voice, one can sense its source. This is kind of referring back to the second step. You sense the source. As soon as the six senses merge, the gate is entered. So this absorption, it's kind of the Zen way. It's the one-pointed approach, perhaps. As the gates merge, as you become so one-pointed that you even forget the one who's practicing. You forget the one who's practicing. You forget the one who's seeking. You forget the one who wants it. You forget the one who doubts it. You forget the one who suffers. You forget the one who's trying to stop suffering. Because that one-pointedness, all of your intention, all of your desire for truth, and your desire to penetrate the illusion that you feel it is an illusion of suffering, all of that down into one point, however that happens for you. And it can happen through effort, through like kind of cultivating effort, then refining effort and honing effort down into that one point in practice, in meditation. It can also happen to where you let go so fully. This is maybe the feminine aspect, the surrender aspect. You can let go so fully until there's really nothing left of your life, nothing left of what you perceive to be you. Thoughts, all of it just fades away. And yet there's something there that's not a thing. There's some knowing that requires no knower. There's a truth that cannot be spoken or written. And it's so fucking simple. And then you open your eyes and there it is. 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 Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Buddha nature. Just appears. So obvious, yeah? And that's what he means when as soon as the six senses merge, the gate is entered. Wherever one enters, one sees the head of the bull. Whether you enter through one-pointed approach, through self-inquiry, through desperation, through rug pull, through absolute and total surrender, doesn't matter. You will see the head of the bull. Why? Because the head of the bull is everywhere. You're looking right at the head of the bull all the time, and you always have been. Awake, asleep, it doesn't matter. It's just there. It's right in front of you. The unity is like salt in water, like color in dye stuff. The slightest thing is not apart from self. This is that oceanic experience of being. That's not an experience. It's oceanic being. Everything in its place. This is indescribable. I'm trying to describe awakening, but everything is in its place. Nothing has ever been out of place. There's no way for that to happen. There's no framework that's needed. Fluidity is the natural way. Simplicity is the natural way. Innocence is sparkling from everything and everywhere. Nothing is less or more significant, and thus everything is so radically interesting and fascinating and alive and glowing and simple and unimportant and magnificent and indescribable. Thank you. Indescribable. And the problem of you at this point really feels solved. And in one sense, it kind of is solved. It's the beginning of the solution, but maybe the biggest relief of this is the relief from obsessing about self somehow, obsessing about yourself and thoughts, obsessing about the story and narrative, the problems, my big problem I've had for so long, It's all of a sudden, it's just like, what? I can't even find it now. I can't find that. Yeah, I can find thoughts, but so what? They come and go. They say this or that, and then they're gone. I don't even care what they say anymore. I don't know what they're saying. I also don't feel aversion to them. They're just like ghosts. The aliveness is here. This is so alive. Holy shit. How did I miss this? How did I miss this? It's just here. And I walk outside. It's just here too. It's like you want to just tell everyone, don't you see it? Do you see it? Do you see it? How can you not see it? It's right there. It's in front of you. I know you see it. You do see it. It's right there. You're feeling it. You're breathing it. Yeah? And then people go, you're fucking crazy. Are you all right? Did you hit your head? You know? And you learn not to talk about it. Yeah. This is the Kensho, the awakening that I talk about. Okay, number 4, catching the bull. I seize him with a terrific struggle. His great will and power are inexhaustible. So this is kind of fast forwarding after the honeymoon period. And you realize like what you're really up against. This is the shadow stuff, right? Sometimes I've said awakening is like a freebie, right? Even though there may have been a lot of suffering and even apparent practice and effort before it, it's truly grace. It is truly grace. And now you can see clearly. And when you can see clearly, you realize there's a lot down in that basement that you've been shoving down there. You haven't looked at, dusted off. A lot of upset emotions that need some space and need to have a voice and need to move. It can come with a lot. It can come with a lot of energetics, pain, physical pain, emotional pain. A lot of this stuff comes up. And I think more and more, I think there's probably nobody who doesn't go through this. I know a couple people who'd say they haven't, but I don't know about that. It's just maybe. It's almost universal from what I've seen and the people I know sort of intimately. They go through a lot of shadow material after a sort of honeymoon period, often with awakening. And this seizing the bull with a terrific struggle, you realize this is an analogy, right? So it's not that your true nature is stubborn and wants to run away. It's that you're stubborn and you want to hold on to your own delusions, you know. That's putting it personally. To put it impersonally, there's just a lot of conditioning. There's a lot of conditioning that has accumulated. You didn't choose it. You didn't, decide to install all of your traumas and, I'll have that trauma. Yeah, I want that person. I want to be abused in that way in this lifetime. It's like, no, you don't choose that. But you accumulate it for sure, right? And you have to process it. And it's a lot for a lot of people. That's why more and more I really do, I don't know about more and more, but I've kind of always try to illuminate this part of things because it can be avoided in some teachings, and the results, I think, can be seen in those spaces sometimes. This is how weird situations come with weird teachers and culty situations and stuff like that. If you're just totally avoiding it, or confusing teachings if you don't address it, right? Because people are going, well, I did have that awakening. I do know what boundless awareness is. I know the experience, and yet I'm really suffering a lot, and I'm reactive, and I'm triggered, and why aren't you talking about that? And you know what I'm saying? So there are teachers out there who just don't talk about this stuff, which, whatever. I mean, I just have to because it's obvious. It happens to pretty much everyone I work with. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the question is, for the recording, the question is, do people who've done a lot of therapy, a lot of work beforehand, before awakening, can it be lighter for them? Is there still going to be some heavy stuff coming at some point, and so forth? Actually, yes, that I think it is true. If you've done good therapy, if you've done deep work, deep shadow work, vulnerable work, I think it really does actually help a lot beforehand. It makes a difference. It decreases the amount of shadow material that you're going to deal with. More importantly, it increases your own trust in your own capacity for experience, because you've already been through so much, and now you're like, okay, yeah, it's just different textures. Maybe some things I hadn't quite experienced, but I know the space, and I know the space of vulnerability and processing and all that. So I think it is definitely helpful. And some people who've done a lot of work, it is much lighter afterward. What I find is at some point in deeper realization, there even if you've done a lot of work beforehand, there tends to be things that might surprise you, existential terror kind of situation sometimes, maybe some kundalini, some heavy energetics that come out of nowhere that can be surprising. A very, very subtle fundamental layer of, I guess, resistance that you just don't have access to until that sense, that perceptual filter of separation really drops away, and there's literally nowhere to hide anymore. There's nowhere to hide anything. Then anything that's left is going to come into consciousness. So, that I do see that. The playing field kind of seems to even in deep realization to some degree. Even people with a lot of trauma, even people with less trauma, they still hit these weird, intense existential terrors sometimes. But they at that point, usually you're like, oh, whatever. I know that was terrifying. I kind of dissolved into reality in a way that was, not what I thought it was going to be, and so be it. But it's often a passing sort of experience, and tends to be fine. But yeah, I think it is definitely helpful to do a lot of work beforehand. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, to go through this catching the bull, to me, this is a lot of the shadow work, or the sort of first part of the shadow work, when it's maybe you don't even know what shadow work is. Your life just feels like you're in some kind of fucking cosmic washing machine, and you don't know how to get out of it, and you're disoriented, and you're feeling pushed this way and pushed that way, and the emotions are so overwhelming, and resistance patterns are everywhere, and you don't even know why, and you're reactive, and you're like, oh, I'm worse than I was before, and I did have an awakening, I know it, but I'm also worse. That's weird. No one told me that was going to happen. All right, that's kind of the fourth one, right? The fourth Oxherding picture. He charges to the high plateau far above the cloud mists, or in an impenetrable ravine he stands. I could interpret that as the cloud mist. It's like, he wants to, or you want to go into some kind of samadhi state and just avoid it all. You want to disappear. You want to try to live in bliss, but it doesn't really work. You can't find the bull there, right? And then also descending into impenetrable ravines, right? These deep emotion spaces that are like, how do I get into that? What is that? And then you're down in it, and it's like so disorienting because you're just not used to that kind of experience. This is the experience of chasing this bull through all of these spaces that you didn't used to know existed, right? Comment. He dwelt in the forest for a long time, but I caught him today. Infatuation for scenery interferes with his direction, right? Again, it's sort of projecting it onto the bull, but it's an infatuation with our own thoughts, with our own perceptual filters that's affecting our ability to come into sort of harmony with the bull, right? Longing for sweeter grass, he wanders away. His mind is still stubborn and unbridled. If I wish him to submit, I must raise my whip, right? At this point, we're talking about our own mind. This is the mind. The mind is we realize it has a lot more power over us than we realized before, perhaps. And also we realize how introducing will within thought, introducing will, pushing and pulling on thought, kind of creates a thought storm. And that actually feels like a life storm. It takes some time to realize that that's not actually happening out here. It just seems like it is. It's happening in here. And we're projecting it out here. And we're also maybe even creating situations out here that reflect what's going on in here, right? But this is the primary issue, yeah? So then you take up the practice of taming the bull. This is Oxherding picture number 5. Taming the bull. The whip and rope are necessary, else he might stray off down some dusty road. You can see now it's kind of like everything's kind of coming into a coalescence, your true nature, your mind, the path, the oxherder that's on the path. All of this is starting to coalesce into a kind of harmonization of experience and practice and life, right? Which is it's definitely a maturity and a maturing of practice as you kind of accept that, there is a lot of work to do still here. There's emotion work and so forth. And yes, there is no one to do it, and there's nowhere that it happens, and there's no time, and there's no effort and doership and all that. That's all true. And yes, there's still a lot of intensity and emotion to work through, and all that comes up, you can't ignore it. It's got to be felt, experienced, acknowledged. Pushing it away does not do you any good. And avoiding it and trying to use your spiritual knowledge to pretend it's not there, convince yourself, it's just not helpful, right? So this is when you become more mature in that. And it's like, okay, well, the work is here. Let's do the work, however that needs to happen. The whip and rope are necessary, else he might stray off down some dusty road. Being well trained, he becomes naturally gentle. Then, unfettered, he obeys his master. Comment. When one thought arises, another thought follows. When the first thought springs from enlightenment, all subsequent thoughts are true. Through delusion, one makes everything untrue. Delusion is not caused by objectivity, it is the result of subjectivity. Hold the nose ring tight and do not allow even a doubt. This is really what I was talking about yesterday with both my guided meditation and my talk of learning to sort of maintain or reaffirm that unbound conscious experience. Call it beingness, call it knowingness, however it is for you. But to remain in that state of conscious equanimity is hugely valuable here. And it does a lot of the work, I would say, passively. There's active ways of doing this work as well through trauma therapy and TRE and IFS and all the things, right? Breath work and psychedelics, maybe, who knows? There's all those things that are going to maybe come up in this process, but the central point is your experience of consciousness. Like, is it reactive? Is it equanimous? If it's reactive, if it's sticky, if it's getting you identified into thought systems and trains all the time, maybe do some work. Learn to hold that nose ring tight until you can let go a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and the mind stays calm. The mind stays here. You stay here. As I was mentioning yesterday, when that equanimity comes of mind, equanimity of consciousness, then you can't be lost. It has a sense of, I can't be lost. Like, wherever there is, this is it. This is the only place that could be. It's the only time that could be. And it's this funny paradox of not caring. For me, it is. Funny paradox of not caring, but actually having a genuine love and compassion for everything that appears. Not caring means I don't really care what happens, because whatever happens is a story. There's nothing's happening here. Nothing has to happen, doesn't matter, right? And so then appearances, whatever appears is enjoyable, right? Simple. Doesn't matter. Person, sky, ground, squirrel, dog, sound. Doesn't matter. It's all enjoyable. It's all here. Yeah. I think Thich Nhat Hanh talked about this a lot in one way or another. And he talked about closing the windows and maintaining that space of sacredness within the home of consciousness, of the mind, of the heart, nurturing that space. But it's important to understand, to nurture that space, you really have to, in my opinion, understand that, or at least learn that mechanism of identifying with thought and reverse it. And you reverse it by not reacting to thought, pushing thoughts, pulling thoughts, but coalescing into thoughts, the thought space, and ultimately the thinker, the sense of the I in there, that is the one that seems like all those thoughts are happening to. When you can rest in that, when you can stay in that backward step, then things will become calm. The bull will become calm. When one, so the comment is, oh, I already read that. Yeah, okay. And when he says, hold the nose ring tight and do not allow even a doubt, that can be misinterpreted like some kind of tension in the mind, and like you don't want to like try to beat up thoughts or kick them out, or the way you'd allow not even a doubt is you see through doubt, and the way you see through doubt is you learn not to re-identify with thought, and you learn not to re-identify with thought by learning to really enjoy the process of knowing the entirety of the space of consciousness and being that you are in real time. Okay. 6, this is where it gets fun. More fun. Riding the bull home. Now he's up on the bull, but he's riding it backwards. So he's on it, playing his flute, but he's on backwards. Some of the pictures show him forward, but I think the original is backwards. Mounting the bull, slowly I return homeward. So this is surrender. This is not just surrender, it's surrender to the Dharma, surrender to realization. This is when you realize it's not just a part of your life. It's not a hobby. It's not a part of your life to make other parts of your life better. It is everything. It's already the whole life. It's all of your life. And, you know, I think that for some people just hits in a moment. It's like suddenly you're like, oh shit, okay. I thought there was sections of life, like there's the Zen part of my life and there's the relationship part. I'm trying to use that to make that better. And then I do this other thing over here, and then I hide this part of my life and from myself and others. But it's like, no, it's all the Dharma. It's all the same stuff. And I'm in it. I don't know why I'm in it. I don't know what's happening, or it doesn't matter. You're on the bull backwards, but what are you going to do? You're going to play your flute, right? You know now that you're in contact with your true nature all the time. You know it. You feel it. Doesn't always feel good. Maybe that bull might do things you don't want it to do, but it doesn't matter. You're on the bull now, right? And so you play your flute. You start to play your flute. You start to trust your words. You start to trust what comes. You start to trust your movements. You start to trust your stillness. You trust your intuition. You trust your practice. That's the flute. That's the sound. That's the sound of your life now, and a life of authenticity that's starting to be somewhat enjoyable. Oh, that's my sound. That's how I move through life. It doesn't have to be how you move through life, or you move through life, or you move through life. Your all lives look totally different, but I'm not taking cues from that anymore. I don't need to, right? This whole thing is the bull now, and I'm playing my own flute. And the music's perfect. It's perfect. The notes are just on time, right? The notes are on time. The notes are right where they need to be. The notes are the entirety of the cosmos. And you have your own notes, and you have your own notes, and those are great too. Don't try to make your bull like mine, or make your flute like mine. Trust your flute. Trust to play your flute. I don't know what it is for you. And that's what he's doing. He's surrendered, and he's also in tune with the Dharma, and hasn't forgotten that. He's not going to. All right. Mounting the bull, slowly I return homeward. The voice of the flute intones through the evening, measuring with hand beats, the pulsating harmony. Right? Why do you know what notes to play? Why do you know what words to say? Why do I trust every word that comes out, even though I have no idea where it's coming from? I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's saying. I don't know. I don't need to know. The words come. Why do I trust this, that I'm even doing this? Why do I trust all of you to be here, just where you are, exactly how you are? It's because of the pulsating harmony. What is the pulsating harmony? I can't tell you what it is, but I feel it. I know it's here. It's all of this. It's ineffable. It's emptiness. Shunyata. It is the delusion. It is the clarity. It is the deepest, darkest ravines of suffering in humans. And it's also those deepest, darkest ravines showing light, showing them how the Dharma functions, bringing the lost souls out of being lost. Yeah, that is the pulsating harmony. It's also the fan spinning. It's the light. So because he's measuring with hand beats the pulsating harmony, he's giving himself to this process. He's giving himself to the Dharma right now, and right now, and right now, and right now. He trusts what notes he's going to play on that flute. Yeah. And then he says, I direct the endless rhythm. Yeah. Yeah. This is really becoming kind of a unity experience. As I said, I direct the rhythm. You could perceive it as like I'm some central figure or some entity, but that's not what's happening. When he says I direct the rhythm, it's like he doesn't distinguish the hand beats of the Dharma. I'm sorry, the pulsating rhythm of the Dharma that he's measuring with hand beats. He can't distinguish that from the notes that are coming from the flute. It's not like, oh, I hear the hand beats and there's a me, and the me interprets that as the notes of my life. It's all the same thing. The Dharma, the pulsating rhythms, the notes coming. It's the same. It's just not difference, right? He's starting to really feel unity and live unity. But the most important part of takeaway of this sixth Oxherding picture is that he has given himself to this process fully. No more negotiation. This is the end of negotiating. Yeah. And it's a state of maturity for sure in realization. When someone has it, it's obvious. When someone's struggling with it, it's obvious to me. This can be a huge hang up for some people. When this process starts unfolding and you fight it, you're not embodying this, you'll suffer a lot. It'll be brutal. I don't recommend that. And there are people who do it. I feel for them. And I understand why they do. I didn't want this in my life. I didn't want my life to go like this. I wanted the story I used to have. Let's say that. I didn't want this to happen. I didn't ask for this. Well, you got it. I can't help you with that. I mean, like my dad used to say, life isn't fair. But maybe learn to embrace it. You might be surprised what it is. You might be riding a bull with intoning your flute, measuring the hand beats. It's really enjoyable. Okay. Comment. The struggle is over. This is equanimity, clearly, right? This is, you could call it like, the fourth and fifth fetter if you want to break it down that way or something like that. This is equanimity. The struggle is over. Gain and loss are assimilated. I don't give a shit about birth and death. I don't care if I lose or gain. Doesn't matter. One might feel better than the other momentarily, but it doesn't matter. Loss and gain are one and the same in some very real sense, yeah? This moment is what matters because this is all there is. Yeah? Simple. I sing the song of the village woodsman and I play the tunes of the children. It's that innocence, right? That's the kind of pointing to innocence, the tunes of the children. It's so nice to return to that like childlike innocence where you don't care, You don't care so much you don't have to even say you don't care. You just are in the moment. The taste of the coffee, sound of the fans, feeling of the breath, color of the leaves. Like what more do you really need, yeah? Astride the bull, I observe the clouds above. Onward I go, no matter who may wish to call me back. Yeah, and those that last sentence is important. Yeah, those demons, that pain body, it will show you itself. It will challenge you. Not even inside yourself. Like it will challenge you. But it won't matter at this point. It doesn't matter. Kill me, torture me, do whatever you need to do. The way is the way, and I won't deviate. And when you have that kind of discernment and that kind of conviction, that there's nothing really that matters other than truth, you'll start to see the world very differently, and you'll see the. I don't know. For me, it's like you can see the dark side of things in a very different way as well, and you'll start to have compassion for it, but you also have a respect for its power. The power of delusion. It's very powerful. And I always remind people, never underestimate the power of delusion, no matter how realized you are, how little self there is. And so you have a respect for it. Yeah. So he doesn't care who's going to call him back. 7, the bull's transcended. So he's just, the wood block just shows him sitting on this hill. The moon's up there. Astride the bull, I reach home. So this is true unity in a sense. This is non-duality. This is the illusion of separation is gone. There's no me and the path and life and thoughts and bull, and it's just right. It doesn't make sense anymore. It's the sort of completion of the 6 Oxherding picture where we're in concert with and realizing that this is not part of my life, spirituality, the Dharma. It is everything. But this has become thoroughly fluid here. You don't even have to think about that anymore. You don't have to. There's not even someone to stand apart and go, "Oh, the Dharma is everything." It's like it's just absorption. This is absorption. Yeah. I reach home. I am serene. The bull too can rest. The dawn has come. In blissful repose. This is the dawn of enlightenment, by the way. In blissful repose, within my thatched dwelling, I have abandoned the whip and rope. Comment. All is one law, not two. We'll go over. So I have abandoned the whip and rope. Yeah. You don't want to do this too early, but at some point, this is one of those things that's hard to talk about. I say, like, is there an end to practice? Yes and no. But the end to practice is when, in one sense, you could say everything is practice. Or it's not practice anymore now, because if everything's practice, it's not practice. But there's something, it's something, and it's like a regard, deep regard for the process, deep regard for life, even though the process is kind of done with you in a certain way. a deep regard for sound. As Adyashanti says, it'll make you so grateful that there are even toenails. Like that kind of, there's the kind of gratitude can arise from this. Comment, all is one law, not two. Again, non-dual. Non-separation. In a very literal way, right? Again, as I look at the cushion, the experience of cushion and self cannot be discerned, and location cannot be discerned. There's just this like, it's very enjoyable. I'll say that. It's in a very strange way, right? And so with this, nothing is special anymore. The world of specialness is gone, but there's this pristine nature of all appearance, and it doesn't get old. You don't get used to it. It doesn't go away. You don't acclimatize to it. It just keeps. It's like being birthed again and again and again everywhere you look. Sometimes when people realize this, you'll see pictures of some of these sages or whatever teachers, and they have their eyes are like, it's just like, what the fuck, like everything is so alive everywhere you look. You could just spend the rest of your life doing that, but a lot of times someone will tell you like, don't open your eyes so wide. I have a friend who literally had his mentor tell him that. He's like, because he'd sit in parks like, and people be like, "Are you all right, man?" It's just so pristine, so beautiful, so ineffable. It's like, oh my God, all the stuff I had sought, like, it's so ridiculous. It was just thoughts chasing thoughts, and now that's really subsided, and this world of duality that was also a thought has just collapsed. And then what is here, which has always been here, is endlessly fascinating. Yes. 7. In the way Kevin Shanlick describes them, yeah. All is one law, not two. We only make the bull a temporary subject, right? We only make practice and the dharma and realization and the spiritual path, it's a temporary process. And this is where people get tripped up, because some people will have a deep realization and be like, there's no path. There's no path, It can be really confusing to someone who is still mind identified. There is a path for them. Of course there is. Yeah, that's fine. It's okay that there's a path. But we do make it's a temporary thing. Yeah, it's related to an experience of a subject. Yeah. It is the relation of rabbit and trap, of fish and net. It is as gold and dross, or the moon emerging from a cloud. This is like one of my favorite lines in all of this. One path of clear light travels on throughout endless time. Light is something I like to reference. There's a light of clarity that comes here sometimes for me, to me, whatever. It is not actual light. It's the light of all appearances, all non-dual textures, just merging into a kind of illumination. Happens a lot during retreat, and it's like the warmest, brightest. I can't even say it. I can't even talk about it. That's why I really have to say don't talk about it. But one path of clear light travels on throughout endless time. Both bull and self transcended. This is number 8. Eighth Oxherding picture. Whip, rope, person, and bull all merge in no thing. No thing is capitalized. N-O, thing is capitalized. This heaven is so vast, no message can stain it. How may a snowflake exist in a raging fire? Here are the footprints of the patriarchs. This is the end. This is to me clearly the end of the self-structure, the subtle self-structure. Because even with non-dual realization, there can be this subtle self-structure. There will be often unless they happen at the same time. There will be this subtle self-structure that can stick around a long time. It can be so in the background that you wouldn't even know it's there. But if you ask yourself, you'll know it's there. Is there something left? Am I not letting go of something? Yeah. Often you know it's there. Something is just still holding on. And it's like a filter. It's like a... it's something, it's like an influence. It's an influence of view. It's influencing your view. It has if there's no subject object anymore and the sense of form isn't there, it's subtle. So you can just sort of feel this like influence, but it's not actually doing anything. It doesn't have anything to attach itself onto, to push against. It's like a lever without a fulcrum kind of thing, but you can feel it, right? And so you can investigate it. There's different ways to go about it, but when that drops, it's very much this. Because the seventh Oxherding picture shows this dude sitting on a hill. There's a grass hut and the moon. Well, this one is like, there's nothing in the circle. No hut, no moon, no body, no self, no anything. Yeah. There's literally no way to talk about what this means. But it's not an experience, I'll tell you that. Whip, rope, person, and bull all merge in no thing. This heaven is so vast, no message can stain it. How may a snowflake exist in a raging fire? The raging fire of emptiness, the raging fire of shunyata. And no thing can exist in it. No position, no view. And yet it doesn't actually negate the conventional. Very, very paradoxical here. Comment. Mediocrity is gone. Mind is clear of limitation. I seek no state of enlightenment, neither do I remain where no enlightenment exists. These two sentences are very important when it comes to transmission. They represent the fourth, Tozan's fourth rank, which Hakuin interprets as powerful enlightened behavior. It's one thing to speak from the absolute and to remain in the absolute and to pervade the absolute. It's a powerful transmission, but it's not nearly as powerful as being able to go right back into the relative and meet someone anywhere they are, and any trauma they're in, and any pain they're in, and any struggle they're in, and be there with them 100% without having to change it, without having to make it something that it's not, without having to try to spiritualize it, without having to encourage them to wake up so that you feel better because the empathic experience is so intense for you. Yeah? That's what this means. That's what these two sentences mean. Neither do I remain... mind is clear of limitation. I seek no state of enlightenment. Neither do I remain where no enlightenment exists. Since I linger in neither condition, eyes cannot see me. If hundreds of birds strew my path with flowers, such praise would be meaningless.